Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutit. We are watching the news happening all around the world, coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center. You can see it all happening behind me. If it is happening there, we will bring it to you right here. This is CBS News 24/7. Happening now, nearly 160 million people from coast to coast are dealing with dangerously hot temperatures. We look at where this blistering heat wave is moving next. Jury selection begins today in Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial. We'll take you live to New Mexico. Plus, a wheel falls off a United Airlines flight during takeoff. And folks, it was not the first time this type of thing has happened. What we know about this incident. But we start with this nearly 160 million Americans who are feeling the heat today. Heat alerts across the country. The West Coast is expected to see record-breaking highs with temperatures well over 100 degrees. The East Coast, on the other hand, is facing humidity alongside those dangerously high temperatures. Get this, it was so hot right here in New York City yesterday that a bridge stopped working. The heat apparently caused the steel to expand so that it wouldn't close properly. Firefighters sprayed water on the bridge for several hours until they were able to get it operational again. All right, CBS News correspondent Carter Evans is in Las Vegas. He's been monitoring the heat there out west. Carter, I've been watching your live shot since yesterday. It was hot yesterday. It sounds like it's even hotter this morning. What are some of the risks posed with the heat and the fires that are raging in California?
Yeah, so it's going to get even hotter. It's in the 90s right now. The temperature on the surface of the concrete here, let me get the reading for you. This is about 113 degrees right now. And it's only 7:01 a.m. out here, right? So the sun's only been up for a little while, so it's very hot. So what can this do to a person? Well, first of all, it can dehydrate you very, very quickly. And if you're outside and you're hot and you're thirsty and feeling tired, then you're already dehydrated. It's too late. You got to get inside and get some cool water. The other thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is when the ground, the pavement is this hot. If you touch it, if you fall down and you're there for any period of time, more than a few seconds, you're going to get burned. Second and third degree burns. About half the people in the burn center here in Las Vegas right now are there with pavement burns.
All right, Carter Evans for us in Las Vegas. Carter, I was shocked yesterday when you pointed that thermometer, I guess that's what it is, a remote thermometer, at some piece of metal on the side there, and it was like 130 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's Vegas, right? There's people out on the strip. They're hanging out. They're kind of getting used to the heat. But there's all these railings and things like that. The escalator handles, they're black. They're very, very hot. So it's like if you lean against a railing on your bare arm, you can get burned out here. It is that hot.
All right, Carter Evans for us in Vegas. Carter, stay cool, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with the first look at the national forecast. Kate.
Hi, Vlad. Yeah, of course, that's the big story, the heat. And, some people will hear Las Vegas. Oh, it's Las Vegas. It's supposed to be hot. They're used to it. They're actually not used to it. 104 is the average temperature this time of the year. When you're talking 117, 118, 2 days ago, Las Vegas hit their all-time record high of 120 degrees. And it doesn't look like it's really going to cool down anytime soon. Take a look at expected high temperatures today. And where you see the pink, these are all the excessive heat warnings out across the west. So Las Vegas headed for 117. As you head down a little bit further to the south toward Needles, we're at 122 for the high. Palm Springs, 121 degrees. Even up in Eugene, Oregon, 105 with extreme heat warnings in effect. Down across the south, the heat scaling back a little bit, but I do want to draw your attention to that heat advisory posted for the Houston area. As cleanup continues with the flooding from Beryl, they are going to be sweltering today, and many, many people left without power and possibly without a way to stay cool. Heading into the northeast, heat advisories blanketing the eastern seaboard. We've got 96 in Philadelphia, 93 degrees up in Danbury, Connecticut today, near 100 in Washington, D.C., and it is going to feel even hotter because you've got the high humidity out across the east. So let's just take a look back to Las Vegas. Look at these temperatures, Vlad. As we head through the middle of the week, we're heading to 118 tomorrow and Thursday. Coming up, I'll tell you more about the flooding left over from Beryl. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Kate, thank you very much. We'll check back in with you a bit later. Appreciate it. President Biden is pushing back forcefully against pressure to drop out of the presidential race. He sent a letter to congressional Democrats yesterday affirming his decision, and it came after a handful of lawmakers publicly called for him to bow out. Congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, where lawmakers are meeting today. Those lawmakers just left. Nicole, what'd you hear?
Well, keep in mind, Vlad, this meeting is still ongoing, and I'm told part of this is designed to be a vent session for any members who may have concerns about the president. But also there is the hope that Democrats at the end of the day can come together and rally behind the president, particularly after he issued that letter to congressional Democrats making clear that he intends to stay in this race. Now, there have been a trickle of some members who have come out. Some of them have committee meetings. But again, our understanding is that this meeting is still ongoing. Take a listen to what some Democrats told us as they entered the meeting earlier today.
I feel very reassured by the president's plan. There's been this narrative that since the debate, he has not been out. He's been out. The videos I've seen of people out campaigning has been Joe Biden.
Joe Biden all the way.
Yes.
Joe Biden.
Are you worried about his cognitive ability, though?
No, I'm not. I've been with him in the last few weeks, and he talked to autos to me better than some of the people I know in Michigan.
So there, of course, many of the president's loyalists, from Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, Congressman Kwesi Mfume of Maryland, who was on that call yesterday that the president had with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as Florida Congressman Maxwell Frost, who also told me that he felt reassured after listening to that call with the president. In fact, many CBC members told me that they felt that the president was clear, concise, and that it was a refreshing conversation, that he laid out his agenda and acknowledged that while he did have a poor debate, he is ready to move forward. So we will continue to see what comes out of this meeting. But as of now, many Democrats that we have talked to, by and large, still standing by the president, at least for now.
We just saw an image there of Rashida Tlaib, I guess, going or entering the meeting, Nicole, and she put out a statement yesterday, again, in support of President Biden. This after the president, as we said in the introduction to bring you in, sent a letter, and it was a very sort of long letter, many paragraphs long, about why he intends to stay in this race.
Absolutely. And I think probably one of the more notable parts of that letter was towards the end, where he really tried to say, look, we've had this debate going on for a week or so already, enough. And I think that is kind of the message, too, that and discussions that are happening behind the scenes. But we also know, and I've been reporting that, the president and the campaign has really been trying to conduct a lot of robust outreach to congressional members. Just yesterday, for instance, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, another progressive, just like Congresswoman Tlaib, said that she got a call from President Biden over the weekend, and she specifically told reporters that she continues to stand behind the president and believes that it is important to, really get focused on this election instead of focusing on this debate fallout that could potentially undermine the party with respect to voters, and that it's important to kind of get back to the priorities. That being said, I don't want to understate that, everybody is kumbaya right now. There are still some serious concerns that many members have. And I would point you over to the Senate, where we have seen a number of senators that I spoke to yesterday continuing to express some trepidation, and while not outrightly calling on the president to step aside, saying that they need to see more from the president. For instance, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, who has been a pretty key ally of the president, I would mention, saying that he wants to see more from this president, as well as some of these senators who are in, these red states running difficult races, whether that's a John Tester or a Sherrod Brown, who are still kind of keeping the president at arm's length.
Yeah, we'd seen that over the weekend, that Senator Mark Warner was one of those Senate Democrats who had some questions about President Biden's viability. I guess the question that a lot of people will have, Nicole, is why it took the president so long. It's been 11, 12 days since that debate to finally do this outreach, understanding, of course, that members of Congress were out last week. But we'll see what eventually happens, because this news, the drumbeat, is not going away. We appreciate it. Nicole Killian for us in D.C. Appreciate it, Nicole, as always. All right, let's talk about Alec Baldwin and his involuntary manslaughter trial. That begins today in New Mexico with jury selection. Let's remind you, he's been charged with the shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust. That happened back in 2021. A judge ruled yesterday that Baldwin's role as a producer on the film was not relevant to the trial. State prosecutors claim he had a special responsibility to safety precautions as a producer. Baldwin said he had no idea the gun was loaded with a live round and says that he did not pull the trigger. CBS News correspondent Elise Preston is following the trial from Santa Fe for us. Elise, what should we expect from the courtroom as the trial gets underway? It is interesting that the judge has ruled that his role as a producer is not material to this trial.
That is very interesting, Vlad, especially because court documents show that the set was riddled with safety concerns, and Baldwin also faces several civil lawsuits based on those safety concerns. Some people reportedly quit the production within days of Helena Hutchins' death. But the judge ruled yesterday that only what happened when that gun went off, when he was an actor, that is what's relevant. So today there is a pool of potentially 79 jurors that need to be narrowed down to 12. If they cannot get those 12 jurors in this first batch, they'll bring in another batch. Vlad, keep in mind, Santa Fe is worlds away from Hollywood. This is a very small community. And the question is not, are you familiar with what happened? It's, can you be impartial? And so that is the question here. Can they come in? Can they hear the evidence the evidence that is presented, the evidence presented as Baldwin being an actor and his defense saying he was not aware that there was a live bullet in that gun when it went off. So that is the question that they're trying to get to today. Cameras will not be allowed in court while they make this jury selection. And the hope is that this can happen in a day. The judge has indicated that she would like opening statements to kick off tomorrow with the jury wrapping up, or excuse me, with the trial wrapping up by next Friday. But there are 60 witnesses that they're going to have to get through in order for that to happen, Vlad.
All right, Elise Preston for us in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And Elise, I loved you trying to get a comment from Alec Baldwin as he exited the courtroom. I know you're going to stay on top of this story. Thank you, Elise. All right, we're tracking the relief efforts in Texas after Tropical Storm Beryl ripped through the parts of the state, leaving a trail of destruction and some homes underwater. We're going to take you there next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Folks, millions across Texas and parts of the Southeast are assessing the damage left behind by Tropical Depression Beryl. The storm killed at least 8 people, including a police officer in Houston, one day after hitting Texas as a Category 1 hurricane. And now the cleanup is underway. Our Janet Shamlian joins me now from Houston, where many people still do not have power. Janet, what's the very latest?
Hey, Vlad, good morning to you. Yeah, it's cleanup day here, and I want to show you this street. We're in downtown Houston. This is Lamar Street, heavily trafficked, and you can see this tree down here, but it is not the only tree down. This street has tree after tree after tree down, and therein lies the problem with the cleanup, right? Just this street alone is going to take a number of hours of manpower to clean up, and we haven't even seen crews here on a very busy street right across from the city's convention center. So that's problem one. Now, in terms of the floodwaters, they have receded. It's more of a debris, a tree cleanup issue, but the big issue today is the power. It's already hot and steamy here. It's going to get much hotter. We're going to have feel-like temperatures into the 100s. And Vlad, there are more than 2 million people without power right now across this region. The area's main energy provider has said that they will have 1 million people restored by the end of the day Wednesday, but it's early Tuesday morning, right? That's quite a bit away, and that's only about half of the outages across this region. So they are opening cooling centers here. They're making water available, but, you know, as someone whose own home is without power in the Houston area, you know, that's really challenging. When you live in a city like Houston, you are extremely reliant on air conditioning. So this is part of the cleanup process made that much more difficult by having no power for so many households.
Yeah, Janet, and of course it's hotter than normal over the last couple of weeks. And as our meteorologist in Philadelphia, Kate Bilo, told me yesterday, hurricane category 1 tropical storm, it's semantics because people are out of power and homes are flooded. So they don't really care how we characterize it at the National Weather Service. The real life implications, they're feeling it on the ground. Janet, thank you very much. Hope you get power back at your place as well. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, let's talk about former President Donald Trump, who's been keeping a low profile. Have you noticed he hasn't had any public appearances in 11 days? But that will change tonight. The former president will hold a rally at his golf resort in Miami, and CBS News has learned that he will be joined by Florida Senator Marco Rubio. And why is that important? It's important because Marco Rubio is currently rumored to be on the former president's short list of potential vice presidential picks. CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi joins us now from Miami to talk about this. So, Olivia, everybody wants to know, Senator Rubio, look, it's Florida, so that makes sense. I mean, I don't want to read too much into this, but he is on that list along with a couple others like J.D. Vance. What are you hearing?
Glad it's game time. So every little detail we're getting, it's crunch time. We're interested in it. We're trying to figure out what is going on. Why is Marco Rubio at this rally today? And it's questions that we are getting. When is this announcement going to come, and who is it going to be? Campaign advisors that I talked to say that that announcement could come as soon as 10 minutes from now or 1 minute before the convention. They say they don't know, and it's really all up to Trump. It could even come in the form of a Truth Social. But there are some inklings we are hearing. Last night, Trump was on Sean Hannity's show where he said, I don't know who I'm going to pick yet, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. So kind of teasing it out there. But we are hearing it's going to happen fairly soon around the convention, if not before, which is starting next Monday. And the significance of Marco Rubio being at this rally today, we are in Florida. We are in his home state. Trump is living here, too. This is his home state. So, you know, there is some of that camaraderie there, but it is notable as he's someone we're hearing who's on that short list. You mentioned J.D. Vance as well, and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. Those are two people we are also watching as well to see if they show up today, and all eyes are on this rally to see if there's some type of big announcement that's going to be made, Vlad.
Olivia, let me ask you about this. Obviously, the press, the mainstream press, Washington press corps has been talking about President Biden's age in the wake of that disastrous debate 11, 12 days ago. The former president is 78 years old, but beyond his age, I think there's an interesting dynamic at play here where some voters are saying, look, sure, Biden has lost a step. He's older. But look at the baggage that Donald Trump brings to this race. In addition to his legal troubles, his impeachment, there are a number of issues that people find problematic when it comes to Donald Trump. And it seems that there hasn't been a focus on that. What is the Trump campaign saying about sort of the baggage that the former president is bringing to this race?
You know, they're not really addressing any of the trials or the criminal felonies. Instead, they tend to focus on policy when we bring up these issues. They tend to focus on platforms and histories. The interesting thing about this race is that they're both former presidents, right? So they both have records that they're running on, and Trump can point to his record pre-COVID and say, look, I had a fantastic economy, you know, inflation was low, people were able to buy houses. He'll say all of those things and point to them and then compare them with where we're at right now with President Biden's economy. And that's really the contrast that they seek to get there. But on the age question, you know, I went to Dr. Jill Biden's event yesterday up in Tampa and spoke with some voters there. And it's kind of the same thing I'm hearing from Democratic voters. They're like, look, this baggage is too much. We cannot afford 4 more years of Donald Trump. Therefore, yes, Biden is old. We understand that. We see it. We know it. But look, you know, we'd rather have him than Donald Trump.
Olivia, let me ask you one last question before you go. This Project 2025, what is that, and why? It seems as if Donald Trump is trying to distance himself from it, but a lot of the things that were put forth in this Project 2025 manifesto, memo, whatever you want to call it, he seems to support.
Yeah, you know, it's a set of policies and initiatives that basically were created by the Heritage Foundation that on day one, if Trump were reelected, he'd be able to go into the Oval Office and there would be a slate of executive orders and people he could hire that have been vetted by this group that say, look, these are conservatives, these are conservative policies that have already been checked out, already been lawyered through, so they should be able to pass through quickly. But the problem was, I think they got a little bit out over their skis, saying that they were the agenda of Donald Trump. And if you know anything about Donald Trump, he's the one who sets his own agenda. He's the one who sets his own policy. And I think a lot of the conversation that Democrats have been putting forward about Project 2025 being Trump's platform and that they're directing all of this, I think at some point Trump put his foot down, especially we saw in that True Social, and said, no, I'm the one who's directing policy. I don't know the Project 2025 folks, even though some of them run in the same circles as members of the Trump campaign. But he put his foot down and said, look, I have nothing to do with this. Now, whether that comes in November or December or January, maybe we'll be having that conversation then, depending on the results of the election. But as of right now, he's seeking some distance between that group and the conversations around them as Democrats push forward and saying that Project 2025 is Donald Trump's agenda.
Fantastic. Olivia, always great reporting. Appreciate you as always. Thank you.
United 1001, we were just told a tire came off your aircraft.
Okay, stand by.
Yeah, folks, you heard what you just heard. A United Airlines airplane lost a wheel during takeoff in L.A. yesterday. 174 passengers and 7 crew members were on board that aircraft. The plane landed safely in Denver. United said the wheel was recovered, okay, and an investigation is underway, okay. A similar incident, though, happened back in March when another plane took off from LAX. It also lost a tire and landed, the plane did, safely in San Francisco. Not something you want to hear if you're a pilot or a passenger. All right, let's take you now to Chicago, where officials are working on a plan to combat the persisting gun violence in the city. CBS News' Mugo Madiwe has more.
Officials in Chicago are once again trying to come up with a lasting solution for gun violence in the city, and it comes after a violent 4th of July holiday weekend. More than 100 people were shot, 19 of them killed. Today, an emergency assistance center for victims of gun violence opens, and a program geared toward mentoring young people officially launches. For CBS News, I'm Mugo Madiwe.
All right, Mugo, thank you very, very much. A new cyber attack is targeting iPhone users, how to spot those phishing scams and protect your data. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. All right, if you are an iPhone user, there is a new warning. A new phishing scam is targeting your Apple ID information. Officials say cyber criminals are sending malicious texts to iPhone users that appear to be from Apple. And they ask you to click on a link and sign into your iCloud account for an important update. But if you do, that is when they are able to steal your Apple ID information. Security experts say protecting yourself by checking the phone numbers and avoid clicking on any suspicious links. Harvey Weinstein's case goes back to a New York courtroom today. Prosecutors are seeking a retrial on rape and sexual assault charges after a New York appeals court threw out his 2020 conviction back in May. Prosecutors claimed they may seek a new indictment as they evaluate new allegations of sexual misconduct claims against Weinstein after some additional people came forward. And closing arguments will resume today in New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez's bribery trial. Federal prosecutors say he, quote, put his power up for sale. The Senate Democrat is accused of accepting bribes in exchange for helping foreign governments. He has pleaded not guilty to more than a dozen charges and has denied all allegations. Actor Alec Baldwin just arrived at a New Mexico courthouse ahead of jury selection in his involuntary manslaughter trial. You can see him getting out of his vehicle there. As a reminder, he has been charged with the shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of his movie Rust back in 2021. There goes Mr. Baldwin into that courthouse. Our correspondent Elise Preston is on the ground there in Santa Fe. She tried to get a comment from Mr. Baldwin yesterday. I know she's going to try again today. And if she does, we'll bring it to you right here at CBS News. Okay, let's talk about the heat, specifically our top story, and that sweltering heat that is blanketing the country from coast to coast. More than 36 new records are likely to be set today across the Northeast. It feels like temperatures are likely to exceed triple digits as an impressive humidity also sets in. CBS News Philadelphia reporter Ross DeMattei has more on what the conditions are like out there.
We have seen some brave souls taking to the world-famous art museum steps early this morning, trying to beat the heat before the sun fully rises. Although I would say we're used to seeing a lot larger group of workout warriors here early this morning. Normally these steps are packed with people who are climbing these iconic steps and doing their famous Rocky impression, getting all the way to the top before posing, just like Sylvester Stallone did back in the day. We are bracing for the 6th straight day of temperatures in the 90s here in Philadelphia, and it's going to feel a whole lot hotter in the city itself. The city of Philadelphia has opened up dozens of public pools and also cooling centers, many of them at local recreation centers or at free local libraries. There's a full list online of those cooling centers. But really, it's all about beating the heat today. Like I mentioned, not nearly as many people taking to the art museum steps as we are used to. It's probably smart given the extended heat wave we're in here in the city of Philadelphia. Vlad, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Ross, and even those folks taking those steps, they're not even holding their hands up. It's that hot. Thank you. All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo with the first look at the national forecast. Kate, you saw those people running up the stairs of the art museum, and you expect that when you get to the top, you're going to do the whole Rocky, hands up in the air kind of thing. They were just like, I just made it up here. I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. I did it. I can't even have the energy to put the hands up in the V formation. I'll tell you what, I got the better assignment than my colleague Ross did today. Indoors in the air conditioning. He's out there sweltering in the heat. As Ross said, this is our 6th day in a heat wave. It's the 5th day in Philadelphia with temperatures above 95 degrees. And the heat is really the top story. But we also have to talk about Beryl. Beryl, of course, now a tropical depression, becoming a remnant low as we go through the next couple of days. But you can kind of see the cloud cover just blanketing the eastern half of the country, and that is keeping things a little bit cooler across parts of the Midwest, but also leading to the threat for flooding. So let's take a quick look at what we're seeing across the nation. Again, the biggest story here, the temperatures. You can see our high temperatures across the map today in spots like Houston, which was hard hit by Beryl yesterday, heading to 94 degrees for the high today. Out over the west, we've got temperatures in the triple digits in Boise, and across the East Coast, the heat is on as well. So pulling our map down, I want to take a look at the big picture here as we look at these temperatures. You can see where the core of that heat is, that heat dome sitting over the West Coast today. And really, it's over Las Vegas, Southern California, into portions of Arizona, but right on up into Seattle and parts of the Pacific Northwest. These areas are mainly under excessive heat warnings. Wherever you see the pink pop up here, those are excessive heat warnings. In the east, heat advisories blanketing the East Coast with temperatures in the 90s and heat index values in the triple digits, Vlad. Coming up, we'll talk more about the rain and potential flooding across the Midwest. But for now, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Kate. Love that you're staying cool in the studio. Too bad for Ross. We'll check in with you a bit later. Thanks so much. Okay, let's go back to politics now. President Biden is expected to deliver remarks today to commemorate the 75th anniversary of NATO, but his speech will have added scrutiny from both sides of the political aisle. The president is pushing back forcefully against pressure to drop out of the presidential race. The administration is also facing new questions over reports of a medical specialist visiting the White House. Official White House logs revealed a Parkinson's specialist visited the White House 8 times over the course of 8 months and met with the president's personal doctor. CBS News' Ed O'Keefe pressed the White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre during yesterday's briefing. Watch.
So every time he has a physical, he has had to see a neurologist. So that is answering that question.
No, it's not.
No, it is. It is. You're asking me.
Kennard, come to the White House.
But I also said to you, Ed, I also said to you, for security reasons, we cannot share names. We cannot share names.
You cannot
we have to.
Others he would have met with.
We cannot.
You can share names in regards to if someone came here in regards to the president.
We cannot share names of specialists broadly, from a dermatologist to a neurologist. We cannot share names. There are security reasons. We have to protect. I understand that. I hear you.
Right there for anyone to see.
Ed.
All right, late last night, the president's personal physician released a letter addressing all of this. Nancy Cordes is joining us now to talk about this. So what did that letter say, Nancy? And for people who don't understand, because when you watch that interaction between our Ed O'Keefe and Karine Jean-Pierre, it looks pretty heated, but there is a visitor's log. And what does that visitor's log tell you, the White House press corps? What does it tell the American people about who's actually meeting with the president?
So the visitor's log shows not necessarily who's meeting with the president himself, but who visits the White House grounds. And so, the log has thousands of names in it. And over the weekend, reporters combing through those visitor logs saw that this particular doctor, a neurologist who is a movement specialist, also has expertise in Parkinson's, had visited the White House 8 times in 8 months. And so questions arose about why he was visiting the White House. One of those times he met with the president's personal physician. The rest of the times he was there as a visitor of someone else. And so that question was put to the White House press secretary in the briefing yesterday. And she said that she couldn't tell us whether he was here to treat the president because of privacy concerns and to protect the identity of that doctor, which was a little bit confusing because, after all, his name is already public. He was in the visitor logs. Nevertheless, she didn't go farther than that in the briefing. You heard that in that clip. But later in the evening, we got this 2-page letter from the president's physician who said that he had gotten sign-off from the president and from this doctor, Kevin Kennard, to share more details. And he said basically nothing to see here, that this doctor was treating other individuals at the White House. There are a lot of doctors who come in and do that. There are thousands of people who go through the medical unit, including members of the military. He said that President Biden had been examined by Dr. Kennard in connection with his annual physicals, but that President Biden had not seen a neurologist at any other time. So basically, this is the president's personal physician saying more or less, nothing to see here.
But the question, of course, Nancy, is that a lot of people saw that debate, 12 days ago, and they saw the president on display, and those questions have been now become a drumbeat in Washington. The president has met with members of his party. Those Democrats are also now meeting today, trying to chart a course for the future. The question I have is, whatever they decide, and Nicole Killian has reported back to us that they seem to be sort of falling into line with the president's refusal, or not his refusal, but the fact that he says that he's staying in this race. The question I have is, what are you hearing from the White House about why it took so long to do that outreach with the members of Congress?
Well, I think they would acknowledge that they got off to a slow start, and that cost them some support, and they had to scramble. And that's why yesterday, as lawmakers were coming back to Capitol Hill for the first time since the July 4th recess, the White House and the Biden campaign kind of flooded the zone and sent this big, loud message, hey, don't cross the president, don't call on him to resign because he's not going anywhere, so you're only going to end up hurting yourself, and you won't have anything to show for it. That's what they were saying between the lines. I have to say, as this House Democratic meeting breaks up, the vibe coming out of it is a little odd. Most members aren't talking to reporters. It's clear that they've been given the message, hey, let's not try to make this worse than it already is. But Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee came out saying, we're not only not on the same page about this issue, we're not even reading from the same book. And there were other Democrats who sort of, certainly there were a few who came out and expressed support for the president, but there were a number who came out looking really stone-faced, not looking particularly happy, which of course is going to lead to more questions about what exactly went on in that meeting, what was discussed. It will take us a little time to ferret that out because the organizers of the meeting were so worried that the details were going to leak that they told the House members they couldn't bring their phones into the meeting to, ostensibly record it or text from the meeting and say to reporters, here's what's going on. So that's what a lot of Capitol Hill reporters are doing right now, is to try to figure out exactly what was said.
Wow, Nancy, that's some really interesting detail there. And the other thing, of course, that I find fascinating about this is that call the president made to Morning Joe yesterday, where he essentially, it sounded to me as if he was saying to the Democratic Party, look, if you guys want to challenge me at the convention, bring it on. But just before we go, in 30 seconds, was that an actual challenge, or is that just the president riffing?
I think he's trying to show Democrats something that they want, which is fire in the belly, and and that he has heard their concerns, particularly after his interview with George Stephanopoulos, where he said, "Oh well, as long as I do my best, I'll be satisfied even if I lose to former President Trump." Democrats didn't like that very much, and so he went on Morning Joe and was looking to show them that actually, he does have that combative spirit that they're looking for.
Yeah, Jon Stewart, as you know, Nancy had something to say about that. The presidency is not a participation trophy kind of a deal. Nancy Cordes for us at the White House. Always great talking with you, Nancy. Thanks for those important details. Appreciate it.
You too, Vlad.
All right, let's go to Bryan, Texas. Acting Governor Dan Patrick is giving an update on Hurricane Beryl's relief efforts. Let's listen.
A significant response to any disaster that we have that very few other states have. So we get there as quickly as we can. They wait for the phone call, and they're gone to rescue people, for recovery, to whatever it may take. It's really astounding. All of these men and women here who work in this center, and the people that you saw in the room earlier that come from around the state in these times to come together for Texas. So this is a spectacular facility that is brand new. It's only been here a couple of years. Chief, where's Nick?
I hit over here, boss.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, so thank y'all for joining us here today. Listen, most of the storm, as you know, is moved out of the state right now. So primary threats are moving out, but we still have a lot of people without power. We're still working with all of our local officials. We'll be touring down in the Galveston County area a little bit later this afternoon, meeting with those local officials there to make sure that we have all of their resource requests and are satisfying their needs as fast as possible.
All right, any questions? We're very fortunate. We thought you were going to get more rain and more wind in the Bryan College Station area, and there was an impact, obviously, for some folks, but it did move along, but we wanted to be sure the people on Bryan College Station were ready, and your teams were ready here to serve the local community. So we caught a little bit of a break up here.
All right, you've been listening to Acting Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, giving an update on relief efforts in the wake of Hurricane and thus Tropical Storm Beryl, which tore through the region over the last couple of days. People are still without power. There are people's homes that are flooded. You can see images there of people chopping down trees that have landed on their homes. The governor, of course, throwing props to the first responders and the folks who are helping the millions of people in that state who are trying to get out from under the wake of that hurricane and that tropical storm. So we'll keep you up to speed on all that throughout the course of the day right here on CBS News 24/7. Meanwhile, a search for survivors at one of the largest children's hospitals in Ukraine after an onslaught of Russian missiles. We're going to bring that to you in just a bit, but Russia's denying that it struck that hospital. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Look at these images behind me here, folks. That is Ukraine, where rescuers are still searching through that rubble of a children's hospital after Russian missiles hit that hospital, and that was the first Russian attack in Kyiv in months. The country's largest children's hospital was among those buildings hit. The attack interrupted heart surgeries, and child cancer patients were forced to continue their treatments outdoors. Russia denies that it struck the hospital, claiming it was hit by Ukrainian anti-missile fire. James Waterhouse with our partners at the BBC News has more from Kyiv.
Even for this battle-hardened capital city, there's a real sense of bruising this morning. The rescue effort is continuing, not just on that children's hospital, where the care and treatment of those patients has been disrupted in such a way, but also in several residential areas after apartment blocks were hit too. And the damage looks particularly severe there. And you can be sure that more bodies will be found from under the rubble. People do get used to Russia's aggression, but occasionally there is a strike that does stand out. And politically, what's interesting is that President Zelensky and other senior ministers are looking to leverage what happened yesterday. They are hoping, they say, that NATO members, ahead of a planned summit in Washington today, would have seen that devastation, would have seen the ease at which those Russian missiles landed on targets in the heart of the city, which does raise questions about Ukraine's own air defences. He hopes they will see that and want to step up in their support for Ukraine. And while these attacks do little to influence the battlefield, they are designed to terrorise the population. And I don't think in cities like Kyiv especially, you will see that resolve, that desire to withstand Russia's invasion diminish. But of course, in this war of attrition, that may well fall out of their control, because Russia is continuing to erode territory in the east. It's been stabilized in other areas by Ukrainian forces, but if you have missiles raining down once more on cities like Kyiv, they become all the more uninhabitable. But thus far, they have done little to suppress people's appetite to fight Russia back. But of course, Russia is saying we are nowhere near making any kind of compromise for peace. We still want to take as much of Ukraine as possible, and they are being unrelenting, really, in the tactics they deploy.
Incredibly poignant reporting from our James Waterhouse there, whereas you heard him say even battle-hardened veterans of this war are heartbroken by what they saw at that children's hospital. All right, as for us back home, we're keeping a close eye on the relentless heat wave that is impacting millions of Americans across the country. We'll get you the very latest forecasts from across our stations. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Happening now, Democrats are meeting inside the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee headquarters. It's happening at this very moment, and President Biden's pushback against pressure to drop out of the presidential race was top of mind at the meeting. Congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is there. Lawmakers have been trickling out, Nicole. We had Nancy Cordes earlier in the broadcast say that the vibe is a little disjointed. And if you're a Democrat, if you're a voter, you don't want to hear that. You want everybody to be on the same page. What are you hearing?
Well, I don't think that should be unsurprising, though, right? I mean, we have come into this week, and members came into this meeting with some calling on the president to step aside as the nominee, and others who are rallying strongly behind him. So naturally, one would expect that there's going to be some tension there. And what we have been told from the few members who have spoken with us, because many have declined comment, is that this is a family discussion, that there is not necessarily a consensus right now, that people do have different views. Some people have other views of what they feel the ticket should look like. Some people have some very personal concerns with respect to, polling and how this race and other races down ballot could play out. And then there are others who just feel like, look, this guy is our nominee. We need to move forward. So that is the internal machinations of this meeting in some, which has played out publicly, I would note, for the better part of a week plus since this debate in Atlanta last month. So when I continue to ask members if they think Democrats can ultimately be on the same page, the answers are a bit eluding, and no one seems to kind of know what that path forward is. There are a majority of members, I think, that do feel it is time to rally behind the nominee. That is why you saw the president reach out to the Congressional Black Caucus last night, which is a very powerful bloc within the House Democratic Caucus. But you also still have some more moderate members that remain on the fence. We have equally seen, in addition to the Congressional Black Caucus, progressives and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus chairs come out in support of the president. But again, you still have these competing forces to reach that consensus about whether President Biden should remain on this ticket.
All right, Nicole Killian reporting live for us from the Democratic Campaign Committee headquarters. Nicole, thanks very much. Appreciate you. All right, before we wrap it up, let's bring back CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Kate Bilo, who has a look at our national forecast. Kate, over to you.
Thanks so much, Vlad. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the heat and what's left of Beryl. We'll start off with the heat because that's the big story out west after Las Vegas hit an all-time high just 2 days ago of 120 degrees. It's 117 there today. We're heading to 121 in Palm Springs. Look at Eugene, Oregon, 105 degrees. The expected high today, and up in Boise, Idaho, 106. That's the core of the heat, but look at Houston, a heat advisory there as folks still are cleaning up in the wake of Hurricane Beryl, which which hit, of course, yesterday. The flooding is going to exacerbate problems there as people clean up and the heat continues to build. And across the Northeast, we've got temperatures well into the 90s. It is hot, it is humid, and the heat is only going to continue spreading further east. And by the way, we have flooding ongoing in Missouri and into Illinois, thanks to what's left of Beryl. Vlad, back over to you.
All right, Kate, thanks so much. Appreciate you. This is CBS News 24/7. An encore presentation of CBS Mornings continues next.